January of 1943, and Reichsmarschall Hermann Goering is preparing to speak at a huge rally in Berlin. It is to be a day of celebrations to mark the 10th anniversary of the rise of the German ruling party, the Nazis. Goering has ordered his speech to be broadcast on the radio and have his words spread to the far reaches of the Third Reich. It is designed to lift the spirits and fortify the resolve of the German people in their push for victory. But the British have rumbled his plans, and they have come up with an idea that will send Goering into a fit of rage and humiliation. And it involves just 6 wooden aeroplanes. In September of 1939, Supreme Commander of the Luftwaffe, Hermann Goering, declared in his speech to his Air Force that no enemy bomber can reach the Ruhr and not one bomb will fall on Berlin. He was attempting to instill a sense of invincibility of the German borders and, of course, ultimately victory. Now, almost 3.5 years later, World War II has shown no signs of ending anytime soon, and the German nation, like most of the world, is becoming extremely war-weary. The German borders had, by now, been breached on several occasions by Allied bombing missions, and Berlin itself had been targeted over 20 times. The Nazi hierarchy now needed some sort of stimulus to re-energise the German people, and so a plan was drawn up for several large rallies. They will be used to not only lift the spirits of a tired nation, but also to mark the 10th anniversary of the rise to power of the National Socialist German Workers' Party. As this was a national celebration, it was to be broadcast live on the radio to all corners of the country so that every man, woman and child could hear the words of the Reichsmarschall Goering. The date was set for January the 30th, 1943. Unbeknown to the German hierarchy, British intelligence knew all about it, right down to the exact time that Goering would take to his podium at the Air Ministry building, 11 AM. The RAF therefore decided to send its own little contribution to the festivities. 6 de Havilland Mosquitoes, 3 from 105 Squadron and 3 from 139 Jamaica Squadron. The de Havilland Mosquito was a British twin-engine multi-role combat aircraft which entered service with the RAF in November of 1941. It differed from many other aircraft of its time in that its airframe was constructed mostly of wood. This made it much lighter and therefore faster than many of its rivals, and indeed, when it entered service in 1941, it was one of the fastest operational aircraft in the world. The variant B Mark IV, used by 105 and 139 squadrons, were equipped to typically carry 4 500-pound bombs, or a maximum mixed ordnance load of 2,000 pounds, at a cruise speed of 265 miles per hour. It had a maximum speed of 380 miles per hour, a service ceiling of 34,000 feet, and a maximum range of 2,040 nautical miles. Early in the morning of Saturday, January the 30th, 1943, at RAF Marham, Norfolk, 3 de Havilland Mosquito Mark IV aircraft of 105 Squadron were being readied for flight and loaded with their bombs. Also at RAF Marham, 3 Mosquitoes of 139 Jamaica Squadron were also being readied. Now up to this point, the RAF had only carried out nighttime bombing raids of Berlin, and so this would be the first time a daylight raid had been carried out. The high speed, manoeuvrability and low level capabilities of the Mosquito were ideal for this mission. At 08:45, the first Mosquito, crewed by Squadron Leader Reynolds DFC and Pilot Officer Sismo, roared into the Norfolk sky, quickly followed by Flight Lieutenant Gordon and Flying Officer Hayes in their Mosquito, and finally that of Flying Officer Wickham and Pilot Officer Macon. By 08:49 they had formed up and set a course for Berlin. Their course would take them northeast from RAF Marham, out over the North Sea, flying at low level to a point just north of Heligoland before turning southeast for Lübeck, where they started climbing to bombing height and then direct to Berlin. With 11 AM approaching, Hermann Goering was preparing himself for his opening speech. As one of the most important and powerful members of the government, all of Germany would be listening in. The State Radio Broadcasting House was just over 4 miles from the Air Ministry building, where the Luftwaffe commandant was climbing the steps of his podium. Reichsmarschall Goering began to address his audience, as the uninvited guests turned up. The radio was no longer just broadcasting his rousing speech, His words were now joined by the roaring of Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, frantic anti-aircraft fire and exploding bombs. Goering had earlier claimed that no enemy bomber could fly over Berlin. Not only had that been shown to be untrue, but they had now shown up in broad daylight. Meanwhile, at the radio headquarters, the broadcast engineers had a problem. Do they continue broadcasting the speech, along with the cacophony of chaos, or shut it down? They opted to replace Goering with Anton Bruckner's Symphony No. 7 in E major, something which confused the startled German radio audience. The day's intended celebrations had just been taken off the air, and it would be 1 hour and 3 minutes before an enraged Hermann Goering would be able to continue. As the RAF Mosquitoes left Berlin, Goering completed his speech, although to no applause, before moving on to another rally and another speech, still boiling with rage. All 3 of 105 Squadron's aircraft returned safely to base. Unfortunately for Goering, whilst he was recomposing himself, back at RAF Marham, 139 Jamaica Squadron were boarding their aircraft. And at 13:25, the first Mosquito, crewed by Flight Sergeant McGeehan and Flying Officer Morris, was airborne, followed by that of Sergeant Massey and Sergeant Fletcher, and finally Squadron Leader Darling DFC and Flying Officer Wright. En route were 3 more Mosquitoes to join the party that didn't just feature Reichsmarschall Goering, but also the Reichsminister of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. Inside Berlin's biggest indoor sports and meeting venue, the Schönberg Sportpalast, at precisely 4 p.m, Joseph Goebbels stepped up to the lectern, ready to give his speech to the nation. As he did so, 139 Jamaica Squadron arrived right on cue. This time, however, Berlin's air defences were on full alert and their retaliation was formidable. This was perfect for the RAF, as this time the radio station kept on broadcasting the full chaotic sounds of the air raid. Following the release of their bombs, the 3 Mosquitoes descended to low level and dashed towards the Dutch coast, their speed being their best defence. The occasional German Focke-Wulf 190 was spotted, but they were easily evaded using the Mosquito's speed as well as cloud cover. Flight Sergeant McGeehan and Sergeant Massey succeeded in returning their aircraft and crew to RAF Marham safely. However, Squadron Leader Donald Darling's Mosquito was hit by anti-aircraft fire and crashed, killing both him and Flying Officer William Wright. They both remain side by side at the Commonwealth War Cemetery in Berlin. The bombing raid itself caused minimal damage, but this was never the point. It was designed to cause as much humiliation as possible to the Nazi top brass, and sow the seeds of doubt into the German people that they could win the war, and that they were unbeatable. This the RAF achieved, as well as gleaning valuable mission data such as fuel requirements, flight times, navigational information and air defences. It also lifted the reputation of the de Havilland Mosquito, gaining rapturous accolades from all directions, not least from a surprising source in Reichsmarschall Hermann Goering himself. It was reported that shortly after the raids, he said, still fuming, "The British, who can afford aluminium better than we can, knock together a beautiful wooden aircraft that every piano factory over there is building. They have the geniuses, and we have the nincompoops. After the war is over, I'm going to buy a British radio set, then at least I'll own something that has always worked."